Could Anakin Skywalker survive the events of Skyrim? Let's find out. Our story begins at Helgen, with Alduin burning everything to the ground and Dragonborn narrowly escaping with his life. In this storyline, Dragonborn goes to the Bannered Mare for some relaxation, and there he meets Sanguine. They have a few drinks together before Dragonborn starts the Night to Remember quest that eventually leads him to Morvenskar, where he goes into the portal. Now, unlike in the actual canon timeline, in our continuity, Morvenskar's portal actually ends up being a two-way portal that ends up swapping Anakin with Dragonborn. So Dragonborn ends up at the Jedi Temple and Anakin ends up in Skyrim. Now, how would Anakin fare in the Skyrim universe? Well, the first thing is, by looking at his physical appearance, they would assume that Anakin is a Nord. Now, in terms of what quests Anakin would do, I believe the first quest that Anakin would complete would be the Companion's quest. Why? Because they enjoy action and adventure. They like excitement, just like Anakin does. They are warriors that are all bravery, heart, and honor, just like Anakin is, aside from the whole strangling Padme part. But otherwise, Anakin enjoys being part of this organization because, unlike the Jedi Order, you're allowed to think for yourself, you're allowed to love, and you're allowed to not be kidnapped as a child. So Anakin quickly rises through the ranks of the Companions, he finds all the pieces of Ruthrad, and with his super Jedi-like speed, he's actually able to complete all the quests before Codlac Whitemane gets killed. So he ends up saving Codlac Whitemane and becomes very popular all around Skyrim. But how do his abilities from Star Wars stack up in Skyrim? Well, pretty well actually. Because Anakin can fix anything, we know his smithing skill is maxed out. His lightsaber skills show us that one-handed, two-handed, and block would of course be maxed out. His telekinesis alone is enough to make him a master at alteration. His force choke is pretty strong destruction magic. His ability to create a lightsaber, which uses an enchanted crystal and you need Jedi telekinesis to assemble it properly, means that his enchanting skill is also maxed out. And finally, the fact that he knows Jedi mind trick means his speech skill is out of this world. So Anakin is actually pretty well off in the Skyrim universe. They would see him as a battle mage. Basically, Anakin would be perceived as a Nord battle mage, and he would be very feared on any battlefield he walked on. Speaking of which, when the dragon comes to attack the Whiterun Watchtower, Anakin would just leap up to the dragon very quickly and chop its head off. Now, that would of course gain him a thainship in Whiterun, but the Greybeards would not be interested in him at this time because of the fact that he did not absorb the dragon, so they're not going to assume that he's the Dovahkiin because he did not have all of the same events that a real Dragonborn would have. But the Blades would be very much interested in him because of his ability to be a dragon slayer, and that's pretty much what the Blades are all about. They're renowned dragon slayers. So Delphine does take Anakin along on several quests, and they go to Kynes Grove, where they witness Alduin resurrecting a dragon. Anakin interrupts the ritual by slicing off one of Alduin's horns and kicking him really hard in the eye. So Alduin flies away, missing a horn and with blood leaking out of his eye. Now, Alduin goes to recover his power, while Delphine comes up with a plan and wants to investigate whether the Thalmor are involved. In order to do that, they have to go and rescue Esbern. So Delphine decides to send Anakin to go rescue Esbern. He goes under Riften into the Ratways, and that's where he encounters the Thalmor. Now, let's stop and think about how Anakin would perceive the Thalmor. They are a bunch of elitist old men in black robes that shoot lightning at people that they want to torture to death. They would remind Anakin of Count Dooku, and he would basically have some PTSD when he meets them, and he would go ham and chop them all up. It would actually be quite a bloody scene. Either way, he ends up rescuing Esbern, and Anakin, before he continues with the Blades missions, wants to get stronger. He wants to learn more about the new world he's in. He overheard the mage in the courtyard in Whiterun talking about the College of Winterhold, so he decides to make a little trip to Winterhold, and that is when he starts doing all of the side quests in Sarthal in order to get the Eye of Magnus, and he does all the side quests for Winterhold. When he gets back to the college at Winterhold, they find that Ancano is experimenting with the Eye of Magnus in a way that is endangering everybody. Now, in this timeline, since Anakin has already had bad experiences with the Thalmor, and he basically thinks of them as Skyrim's equivalent of Sith, and because he knows how dangerous something like that could be, he does not waste any time, and he just straight up force chokes Ancano to death. Ancano does not have any time to put anyone in danger. He doesn't have time to kill Mirabelle or Savos Aren or release any of those evil creatures into Winterhold. Anakin stops all of that dead cold. And in so doing, he gets the gratitude of the entire College of Winterhold and of the entire city of Winterhold. So, because Savos Aren survives, Savos Aren and Anakin go together to Labyrinth to get the Staff of Magnus. And while they are there, Savos Aren meets the thralls that he basically had to betray in order to seal off Moroke all those decades ago. Savos Aren is able to say his last goodbyes and free them, and they together are able to kill Moroke. Anakin ends up getting Moroke's mask as a reward. When they get back to the College of Winterhold, they basically all share their appreciation for what Anakin has done, and they collectively name him the new Archmage of Winterhold. So finally, there's a continuity where Anakin actually gets granted the rank of Master. The very first change that Anakin brings about in the College of Winterhold is he makes it mandatory for all of the wizards to have some lightsaber skills, because he says to them, your spells are interesting, but if an enemy sneaks up on you or is in close range, you won't have time to cast your spell. What are you going to do then? And so he makes it mandatory that every member of the College of Winterhold builds a lightsaber. Now, you might be thinking, a lightsaber is a complex piece of electronic equipment. How in the world could something like that exist in Skyrim? Well, if you think about it, a lightsaber pretty much needs three things to exist. You need a workbench to build it, you need an enchanted crystal to give it its color, and you need a battery to give it its power. Skyrim has all of those things. All they have to do is go to a few dwarven temples and steal the batteries out of the dwarven centurions, and then use soul gems as their crystals, go to a workbench or an enchanter's table, boom. Now the entire Winterhold College has lightsabers, and Anakin renames them the Knights of Winterhold. And he's basically starting his own equivalent of the Jedi Order. For the very first move is they go to meet up with Delphine and discuss what they're going to do, and Delphine decides that they need to infiltrate the Thalmor embassy in order to find out if the Thalmor are behind Alduin's return. Anakin does not need an excuse to go into the Thalmor embassy. He already wants to kill them for what they are doing to people in Skyrim. He sees that the Thalmor have been dragging people out of their homes and torturing them. He remembers his time as a slave on Tatooine, and he is very triggered by the Thalmor and decides that they all need to die. So Anakin actually decides not to sneak into the Thalmor embassy. Instead, he and the Knights of Winterhold kick down the doors of the Thalmor embassy and basically go Order 66 on the Thalmor, wiping them out and utterly destroying them. Now, the Thalmor were a major driving force behind attacking and persecuting the Nords. So Anakin wiping out a lot of Thalmor gets him put on Ulfric Stormcloak's radar. Ulfric is very thankful for what he has done and views it as a good thing for Nordkind, so Ulfric makes him Thane of Windhelm. From there, Anakin completes the quest. He gets the Elder Scroll quite easily, actually, because nothing can really stand up to him in the Skyrim universe. Maybe dragons because of their speed, maybe Draugr Deathlords because their unrelenting force shout is kind of like a force push, but pretty much everything else is a pushover. So Anakin goes to the throne of the world, he opens the Elder Scroll, and Alduin comes because he senses that Anakin has learned the Dragonrin shout. So Alduin is coming to ambush Anakin, but then Anakin reveals that the Knights of Winterhold were all in hiding. Together, they Dragonrend Alduin, forcing him to the ground. They all jump on him and chop him up like a horker. They carve him to pieces, thus ending the dragon threat in Skyrim. Ulfric Stormcloak is very happy that Anakin was able to deal with that, but then Ulfric says, but I need your help against the Empire. So Anakin decides to help Ulfric Stormcloak free the Nords from the oppressive Empire. They march on Solitude and they take it over. But then, unsatisfied with that, because again, Anakin wants power and he wants to eradicate evil, they decide that they've brought justice and peace to Skyrim, but then Anakin, just like Galmar Stonefist, wants to take the fight to the elves. And so, together, Anakin, the Knights of Winterhold, and the Stormcloaks all go to Somerset Isle and they wipe the Thalmor off of the face of the Mundus. And that is what would happen if Anakin were in Skyrim. Let me know if you want me to do the part 2 where Dragonborn is on Coruscant. How would Dragonborn do in the Clone Wars? Who knows? If I can get 1,000 likes, maybe we'll find out.